The Toronto Blue Jays got absolutely demolished at Minute Maid Park against the Houston Astros. It was a rough start to the three-game series, but we'll break down the rough loss and much more in this episode of Jays Digest. What's up, Jays fans? I'm your host, Peter Vryonis, alongside host Nick Gosse, and unfortunately, I think we're going to have to do this quite a bit throughout the season. It sucks to talk about losses, but the best case scenario is that the Blue Jays lose 60 games this year, and we still have to come here and do these videos. But we want to thank you for all the support. Hopefully, you're tuning into this one. Maybe let off some steam in the comment section. Go ahead and do that, but it's a long season. You turn the page and you move on. But thanks to each and every one of you for all your continued support on the pregame streams and on the postgame live reaction videos as well.
Yeah, make sure to hit the subscribe button. We're on the road to 7K, and like you said, support's been great. But I don't know. We have to cover the losses. We can't just be all sunshines and rainbow. We can't cover every single win and just never cover the losses. Not how it works. But the point is, from these videos, is to maybe take some good things out of otherwise a very disappointing game. And let's just get into the disappointing game, which was started off very, very weird with Kevin Gausman getting roughed up. And when he goes to the mound, and we discussed in the pregame show, we expect him to go 5-6 innings. They touched on it in the broadcast. If I was in the bullpen and Kevin Gausman was taking the hill, I'd be chilling out for the first at least 5 innings. And ultimately, they basically did because of how composed Kevin Gausman ultimately stayed. But what a weird start to the game. It seemed like I went up to get some food, and by the time I came down, it was 7-0. I had the game on anyways. But what do you think happened to him today before we get into some of the other pitching staff? Just a weird game, and I think that's what it comes down to. Just a strange one of those days.
It happens. It happens, and I think it's my fault because in the pregame show I said he's the best pitcher that the Jays have had since Roy Halladay, and then of course
That you've
he
seen.
gets roughed up. That I've seen, yes, that I've seen, and of course he gets roughed up for 7 earned runs in the first inning, and I'm not worried. It's Kevin Gausman. The last thing I want to have to do is worry about Kevin Gausman now because it seems like we're worrying about a new player every other day, right? So I'm not worried. It happens, but once you go down 7-0 in the first inning, it's always an uphill battle, and it's impossible to get back into the game. Now the Jays had their chances with Matt Chapman with the base loaded, but it just was not their day, and it's a long season. The Jays are better than this. They're not a team that's going to lose 9-2 very often. Unfortunately, today was one of those days, and we didn't post yesterday, so we had to get back on the train today.
Always, and we're going to be covering most losses. There's obviously some times where we're not going to be covering them, but today, especially the start of a new series, we had to do it. And let's not forget, and I'll point this out now, very tough schedule for the Blue Jays. Very, very tough. Much harder than most of the other teams in the major leagues, and it will cool down eventually. But touching on some of the pitchers, Gausman 4 2/3, giving up 7 hits, 8 runs, 7 of them earned, bringing his ERA up to a still respectable 3.65. But we saw it at least I saw it from the get-go, that his command wasn't there. His stuff didn't look great. He was missing outside against left-handed hitters consistently with the splitter, and he didn't look locked in at all. And you could kind of tell after the 2-run hit there that it was gonna go maybe downhill. Though I did not expect 7 runs. Anything else you want to touch on with Gausman before we move on to the other bullpen arms?
Yeah, like I said, I'm not worried, but you could tell from the start of the game that the Astros were not even biting on his splitter, and that's when you know Kevin Gausman has his best stuff. Last start, he looked probably the best he's ever looked in a Blue Jay uniform, apart from maybe a couple pitches to Nick Maton and Kerry Carpenter. But today it was the total polar opposite. He couldn't locate that splitter. His fastball velocity wasn't where it needed to be, and it happens. It's one of those days. Kevin Gausman's the ace of this ball club. He'll be back against the Yankees, and like you said, very tough schedule to start off the year. 10-7 is not the worst case scenario. I honestly think the Jays have done pretty well with what's been thrown at them, and 5 more tough games up ahead.
Yeah, 10-7 I think is pretty average. I think that's where you'd probably expect him to be if you had to kind of guess and be realistic about it. But looking at some of the other bullpen arms, Denny Bass continues to disappoint. It seems like he can't go out there and get a clean inning, no matter how many times they try, which is very, very concerning. Adam Simber has looked has looked very, very good this season, and Zach Pop as well has looked absolutely dominant. I don't know if you want to touch on Zach Pop quickly. I've been so impressed with him. I feel like we don't give him enough credit sometimes, but he has looked unbelievable out there every single time he's taken the field.
Yeah, he's very good. I don't know if I would have thrown him out there today. Maybe would have gone with with Richards or Meza. You know, they haven't gotten their work in the past couple games, but I mean, Zach Pop's your workhorse in that bullpen, and he was the final guy to make the bullpen, and now he's looking like your most trustworthy guy in there. So shout out to him. Great Canadian pitcher, and I'm very glad he's on the Blue Jays.
Yeah, Richards ended up going just 2 innings yesterday because the starter didn't go well. But I would have liked to see him throw him out there anyways. You're not going to use him in high leverage situations, so may as well throw him out. But let us know in the comments what your thoughts are on that, and what a weird game from the pitching staff and in general, as we'll now touch on the bats going cold. And they had their chances. I thought when the bases were loaded, Matt Chapman was up, maybe we could have had an Angels type comeback down 6-0, but he ultimately striked out on a fastball right down the middle, which was annoying. But the hitters didn't do a whole lot today. Bichette got his hit. Espinal had his home run, which honestly was kind of a bright point of this game, considering that he's been really, really cold to start the year. Vladdy went hitless, didn't even get on base. Very surprising there. Varsho once again hitless. Matt Chapman stays fairly hot, and Brandon Belt got a base hit there. Actually, a rocket of a base hit there at the end of the game. But any thoughts from the hitters today? They were pretty disappointing outside of a few players.
Yeah, there's not much to say on the offensive side of things. I mean, George Springer got very unlucky today. Might have had a 3-homer game if he was playing in Toronto today, but he hit the ball hard all 3 times that he was up there. Santiago Espinal got his first home run of the season.
Yeah.
Chapman added another home run to the tally, but apart from that, pretty disappointing from everyone else. I mean, in a 9-2 game, in just dominant fashion from the Astros, there's not much to say when it comes to the offense. Again, just turn the page and move on. You got a big game tomorrow. You can't dwell on it. And Kevin Gausman did what he had to do. He almost got through 5 innings there after that horrible start. Probably worst case scenario that he could have had. And then he toughed it out. He got up to almost 100 pitches and got you to where you needed to be, to the point where the bullpen wasn't taxed and you're in a hole for the rest of the series. So it was a tough game, but they managed about as well as they could.
Yeah, and when you're down 7-0, and we touch on this off camera, when you're down 7-0 to start the game, the offense, they have a lot of work to do, but you're really not expecting to win the game at that point. You're kind of hoping just to manage your relievers and things to the best of your ability. And these are the games that I'm sure John Schneider hates managing, because you really have to. We have another whole series against, of course, Houston now, and then the Yankees. 2 big series coming up. You could not have started worse for Kevin Gausman and the hitters as well, who didn't do a whole lot. But like you said, a couple positives out of that. But let's move on to a topic now that needs to be addressed, and we touched on it in the pregame show, and I'll let you kind of have a little rant here about it. And the tough decision we're talking about, there's a few tough decisions, but we're going to mainly focus on the decision that shouldn't be that tough between Cavan Biggio and Whit Merrifield. And we touched on it in the pregame show, and tons of you in the chat were saying the same thing, and people on Twitter as well. There is no reason at this point that Whit Merrifield should ever not be playing instead of Cavan Biggio, especially considering he's been very, very hot. He had a double off Shane McClanahan yesterday. I'm going to let you take the floor here now. Biggio looked very bad today. We don't dwell on him too much. We kind of want to focus on the point that Whit Merrifield needs to be in the lineup.
I don't know why he was in the lineup today against an ace caliber pitcher in Christian Javier, who throws in the mid-90s, who's got a wipeout breaking ball. I mean, Cavan Biggio has looked absolutely lost at the plate, and not only should he not be in the lineup, I don't even know if he should be on the roster at this point. And I'm not saying that to rag on the guy, but you see Addison Barger hitting well in AAA. You see
Otto Lopez,
Otto Lopez, yeah. How can he slip my mind? I mean, this guy is about as steady as they come at the plate, and even ahead of Santiago Espinal. I know Espinal hasn't been hitting, but at least he provides Gold Glove caliber defense over there. So I just don't understand why they're so enamored with Cavan Biggio and why they keep running him out there. Was it because he was in Houston and that's where his dad made a Hall of Fame career? Unfortunately, he's not his dad. He's not, and he's an okay player. He would probably start for a lot of below average teams, but on a team with title aspirations, he shouldn't be starting 3 out of 7 days. It just doesn't make sense to me. So when there are better options in AAA and even better options internally on your team right now, he should not be taking the field unless it's for base running purposes or for defensive purposes. Wherever you want to put him in those spots, fine, but not to start against a frontline starter. It just doesn't make sense.
And Whit Merrifield hit well against Javier in his career, which adds furthermore to the confusion. And obviously, Biggio's a left-handed hitter, but that does not matter at this point. He can hit, so what's the point of if he's left or right splitting up? It makes no difference. And Whit Merrifield, he's played almost every game of the season throughout his career in Kansas City. Right now, he's not hitting very much at all. He's not getting nearly as much playing time as he should, and he's hitting very well. He's just not getting the at-bats that he needs. And we could honestly have a whole video about this, and maybe we'll, I don't know, just weird decisions. Anything else you want to touch on? Let us know in the comments. I know a lot of you are probably with us here.
And I don't know if any of you that were in the pregame stream are going to be watching this just because of the ugly loss, but we said it as well. When Whit has a clear job, when his role is defined, that's when he plays his best. I mean, this guy was a hits leader in the American League for 2 or 3 years. He's stolen bases leader. He's got a lot of value to provide to this team, and he's being wasted on the bench in favor of Cavan Biggio, who has had all the time in the world to figure it out and still hasn't been able to. And it's too bad. It's too bad because he could be a valuable contributor to the team. But, you know, there's only so much upside in a 27-year-old. And it's time to give Whit Merrifield that job full time and let him be the guy that you went out and acquired. Obviously, Kansas City was not a great team when he was there, and he is going to play every day because it's easier to make your way into that kind of lineup. But they acquired him for the purpose of playing, not to rot on the bench and play half the games. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, it needs to change.
And I don't want to rag on John Schneider either because the lineup card is his, and I like the moves that he makes for the most part. Obviously, we're going to disagree. We all have different opinions. And I don't care what John Schneider does with the lineup card, but that is one thing I just will not understand it. And I don't understand why he loves Biggio so much.
And who knows if it's him? Maybe it's the higher ups. We don't really know. All I do know is that it needs to change, and it's something that we feel strongly about because at this point, Biggio, he had a couple of okay moments this season, but I just want to see Whit Merrifield playing every single day, because if we want to have championship aspirations, I think he is a big part of that, and I think that ultimately he'll be a key piece of that. But we're looking on now to tomorrow. That'll wrap up the video. Hopefully we can get the win tomorrow. We'll be there for the pregame stream, and thank you guys for watching, and hopefully tomorrow will be a better video.
Thanks.